So, Eddie, how did you come up with the idea? And I understand this has been something you've wanted to do a long time.
Yes.
Rudy Ray Moore. Why did you decide to do a biography of Rudy Ray Moore?
Well, it started off, my fascination with Rudy Ray Moore just started off like everybody else. That's part of his little cult. He had a little cult following. And I just thought he was funny at first. And when I got older and then I started making movies, I looked at him in a whole different way. It was like, and you hear the backstory of how he got his movies made. Like, this guy would finance his movies himself. He would finance his records himself. He couldn't get in, the black exploitation era. He couldn't get in during that period. He had to go through the back door during that period. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, he's a guerrilla filmmaker. He's not just this funny guy. This guy really is. I tell you, if you watch, we would watch his movies and we would like, oh, because you could see the microphone and you could hear, you would see like stuff, you would see like a punch miss, and that was the appeal of the movie. But if you watch a Fellini movie or a Jodorowsky movie, you watch 8.5 by Fellini and watch Holy Mountain by Jodorowsky, then watch Human Tornado, and you will have the same reaction. Watching all movies, you'll be watching, what the hell is this? You have that reaction. And those guys are geniuses. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking of him like that, oh, this guy was really doing some other thing. And the way he got his movies made, I thought made it for a great story.
But at his core, it seemed like this guy was looking for the American dream. He was a dreamer.
He was a dreamer, and that's what his biggest talent. That's what his talent was, because his comedy is super crude. He literally went in the alley and got it, from homeless guys, and his records, that stuff is super crude, but he believes in it. And that's the most important ingredient, is belief in whatever you're doing. That's how every now and then you'll be, flipping through to see what's on, and you'll see like, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, and you'll be like, what the fuck? Who made this movie? How'd this even get made? It's like somebody believed in it, and somebody believed in it to where, if you believe in it, even if you're the only one that can see it, if you really believe in it, whatever it is, it'll pop up.
This is such a period piece. It's the 70s, and the clothing and the outfits. What was that like? I think you had like 75 costume changes in this.
Yeah, that's the the most harrowing part of making a movie like this. You remember the 70s, the stuff we was wearing, the platforms and the stuff. And back then, Al, if you put on some platforms now, our age, you'd be wondering how we did it. And that was the hardest part, wearing those clothes. And we had the brilliant Ruth Carter, who won the Oscar last year. She did our clothes, and she has it looking so authentic, but it's really uncomfortable.
How did you prep for this role?
I didn't have to do a lot of prep because I had been a fan for years and years and years. And like I said, we tried to get this movie going 15 years ago, and for whatever reason, it didn't come together. And so this was something that was in the back of my mind, something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And I'd seen his movies so much, and I'd seen him live, and so I didn't have to do a lot of prep to get into, to get into him, and his story. I've done another movie about a group of misfits that make a movie called Bowfinger. So I kind of have a soft spot for those types of movies. So I didn't have to do a lot of prep.
What do you think? What would Rudy Ray Moore think of this new spotlight, this new shine?
I think I know Rudy Ray Moore would be over the moon, because he was kind of like forgotten. Like, so many people don't even know who he is. It's like a lot of people that are seeing this movie are being exposed to him for the first time, because his whole thing got kind of like swept under, and he had a little cult following. Like, the rappers have kept him alive more than anything, because the rappers acknowledge him because he was telling his little rhymes on beat to music, so the rappers kind of acknowledge him. Artists like Snoop and those guys have lifted him up and kept him out there. But Rudy would be over the moon that he was finally getting his story was being told.
Is that why Snoop's in the movie?
No, Snoop's in the movie because we was just lucky to get Snoop. But he was a big fan of Rudy as well. You know what's funny? Almost everybody that's in this movie was like part of his he has a little cult following, Rudy Ray Moore.
In fact, I mean, this is a hell of a class. You got Wesley Snipes, you got Keegan-Michael Key, you got Craig Robinson, you got Devon Joy Rudolph, Snoop Dogg, Titus Burgess. I mean, you really put together a murderer's row of folks in this thing.
A great cast, and it's directed by Craig Brewer, and I'm over the moon with how it turned out. You know, when we did this movie, we were just thinking, hey, we love Rudy Ray Moore. Let's just make this great movie let's tell his story, and we were all into it, and we had no idea that it would be, that it would be this, that so many people would relate to it and get into it and appreciate it.
Why do you think that? Why do you think people relate to this guy who most folks don't know about? What is it about him?
His story is inspirational. His story, and he's a relatable person, like he's the regular guy who just has big dreams, and the way he did it, the way he put his movies together, and the way he got his stuff done against all odds, because he's not a good-looking guy, and he's not a brilliant genius comedian. He has none of the tools that the person that's dreaming of, being a star. He has none of those tools, So to see somebody that, achieve what he's his dream, when he has none of the tools, that's inspirational. Everybody could get something from it.
How does it feel? I mean, from the get-go, this thing, like I read the Times review, there's been a lot of great critical buzz about this. I mean, it's gotten great reviews, and there's even been talk about Oscar buzz. How does that feel?
That's just gratifying. It never sucks to get Oscar buzz.
Yeah, who says that?
It's never like, man, they buzzing about the Oscar. It hasn't happened yet. That's all. That's just a great thing.
In the opening credits, you dedicate this film to your brother.
And end credits.
At the end credits.
Yes.
At the end credits, you dedicate this film to your brother. And I remember interviewing you years ago, saying that your brother Charlie was one of the funniest guys.
One of the funniest people ever.
Yeah.
And he's the first one to tell me about, like Rudy Ray. He's the one that came back to the same movie theater we was talking about, where they would let us come in and see, R-rated movies when we were like 14, 15. He's the one that came back and was like, you got to go see this guy, Rudy Ray Moore. And it's the first time I was exposed to him.
In the movie Dolomite, as Dolomite, you're performing in front of a club, and you've got an audience. And did that, because we're hearing now you're going to do a comedy special, for Netflix. Did that kind of get the juices flowing to do that again, or did that predate?
No, that was the plan before that. When I started feeling like, wow, I could do this again, was about 5 or 6 years back. I got the Mark Twain Prize, and you have to do an acceptance speech. You just can't come up and say thank you, because it's about comedy and all these comedians have come out and done so it was like, I had to write 5-10 minutes, and it was like that. When I went out and did that, wrote 5 or 10 new minutes of stuff, and so it was like, oh well, I could still do that. That's when I started thinking about it. So it was about 6 years ago. Then I was just waiting for the right movie to do. I didn't want to just pop up out there doing stand-up, and I didn't want to pop. The last movie I did was a dramatic of Mr. Church. I didn't want to show up, doing stand-up after Mr. Church. So it was the plan was that we were supposed to do it after Coming to America. It was like, after Coming to America comes out, we'll go and we'll host a Saturday Night Live, and that's a great way to hop back out on the stage again. Then Rudy Ray Moore came together so well. It was like, oh wow, this is funny, and we can tour off this movie. So it pushed the tour a year earlier.
How does it feel as you're getting ready to do this? Did you have to do anything different to get back into it?
Get back into
to get ready for a stand-up?
Well, you got to go to the clubs. I haven't started doing that yet, so I would imagine I would just do the same things I always did, because I never wrote stuff out on paper. I would be like having a conversation, and I'd say something funny, and I'd be, oh, that's funny, and I would go try it on stage. And I've always done that. That's never stopped. I just stopped taking it to the stage. I still will say.
So you've been doing stuff.
Well, I still say I'm still me. I still that's not something I have to prepare for or get into. It's like I'm still me. I just stopped going, oh, that's funny, and taking it to the stage, but I still say funny things. I've had people around the house reduced to a puddle and be like, man, that would kill in front of 20,000 people the way you crying.
Well, here, you talk about doing it around the house. You've got kids now, 10 kids. Will that change the kind of comedy you do, the kind of stand-up you do?
I don't know. Last time I did stand-up, I was 27 years old. So I was doing stuff from a 27-year-old's perspective. So I can't imagine that I would get up and be talking about that kind of stuff now. Especially, like, I look at some of my old stuff and cringe. I'm like, oh my God.
How come?
Sometimes we just feel, well, I can't believe I said that. oh my God. And then you're looking at yourself. So look what I have on. Is that a ring on the outside of my glove? You'll see stuff back then, because that stuff is still on. But I would think that when I would go from, I'm 58 now, so I don't think I'm going to approach it the same way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do your kids think you're funny?
Yes, I'm funny. I'm a funny person.
I like to think I'm funny. My kids don't think I'm funny.
No, but I'm naturally a funny person. I've always been a funny person. And so if you're around me, there will be laughter.
You talk about the difference between the 27-year-old Eddie Murphy and the 58-year-old Eddie Murphy. What would you tell, if you could, tell your younger self that you know now?
Oh, there is no one thing. There is no one thing, and there's the 27-year-olds. I wouldn't even waste my breath on them. It's like, go on and do it. I wouldn't. Well, beware of this and watch out for that, because I've been really blessed. I've had the closest you can have to a charmed life, and so I don't know if there's any. Watch out for this. I would tell the 27-year-old.
Everybody's excited about the idea. You mentioned coming to America too. Why now? Why did you decide to do it now?
Just came together. It came together, and it's almost like stuff happens in cycles. It's like there could be things. It's like this stuff all came together right at the same time, like back to back to back. And we're doing a Beverly Hills Cop movie as well after coming to America. And the script, these are all things that were like I said, Dolomite was in development 15 years ago we tried to get going. And coming to America is like 5 years since we were trying to develop. And Beverly Hills Cop, it's been in development for 8 years. So, and they just are all just kind of coming together and falling into place around the same time. And Saturday Night Live, going back to Saturday Night Live, when I went back for the 40th anniversary, it was like I got this nostalgic feeling and saw everything, and it was like, wow, it'd be great to go back there and host a show. And it's just, like I said, I think things happen in cycles, and then here we are now.
It is fun, but 2019, it's all come together. Like 2019 is the year of Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, all this stuff just fell into place that was in development and came together and falls in it. And so, okay, well, we're supposed to be doing what we're doing right now because this element just fell into place. So it's like, oh, okay. So.
In fact, the first time you hosted SNL, you were still a cast member. Nick Nolte dropped out for whatever reason. And
I guess technically I was hosting, but I really wasn't hosting. Like Nick had been bailed out at the last minute, and we were in 48 hours together. So, but I was in the cast.
Right, but you were the host. And now here you are. Are you nervous about hosting again?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm looking forward to it. I don't get nervous about doing creative things. I get a little excited feeling, and then I'll get a little feeling before I do it, like, I hope this is good. I hope we crush it. But I don't get nervous or get scared. Yeah.
Like even getting ready to do the stand-up, you're not nervous about that, or?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm not nervous about the times and what you can't say. Whenever I'm thinking about something, like I said, I'm thinking about something creative. I'm a constructive thinker. I think about how good it could be, or I want to go turn it out. I want to crush it. When I think about doing stand-up, I think about crushing it and kicking ass. I don't think about what they're gonna say. Will they pick it? Well, I don't think about any of that.
Is that the same? Because look, you've had these huge hits, and then there have been some that weren't huge hits.
Yeah, well, I've been making movies for almost 40 years. Yeah, so it's 38 years I've been making movies, and I auditioned for Saturday Night Live when I was 18. So that's, in 40 years you're going to have some periods of hot and cold and ups and downs, and like I said, everything is in cycles.
You know,
most people aren't around for 40 years.
No, they're not.
In this business.
No, they're not.
Yeah,
In fact,
success is the exception, not the rule. Most people come and go.
I remember you came to Cleveland. You had just been made a not ready for primetime player, and you came.
19.
That's right. You came to Cleveland. It was you, Denny Dillon, and Charles Rocket, and you came to Cleveland to do our local show. Do you still sometimes marvel at the arc that you've mentioned? 40 years you've been doing this, and you're hotter than ever.
Well, I appreciate, I appreciate it now. When I look back, when I was in the moment, I just kind of, like any young person, you just take whatever's around you for granted. And now when I'm older, I look back on and I can appreciate, I had an extraordinary little run. I'm looking like, wow, that things unfolded the way that they did.
I interviewed you, I think it was 2008, and you said at 50 you were going to retire.
Yeah, I did. I kind of semi-retired. I'm still kind of in a semi-retired state. I am. What happened was I've been for maybe 5 or 6 years, I was kind of like, on the couch, just doing nothing and not planning and not trying to get anything. And I had things in development, but I just was doing nothing. And I think I did a Rolling Stone article. I was like, I'm kind of semi-retired. And that means like I'm never, ever, ever, even if, people love these pictures I'm doing, I'm never going to be on it like I was when I was in my 20s. Because what I like to do more than anything is just to not have a schedule and just be within earshot of my children and just do nothing. That's my favorite dish, So I'm doing I don't want to say I'm retired, I won't do anything. If some great thing comes along, if some great thing happens, some great director or some great idea, of course I'll make other movies. And I'll always, once I get my stand-up muscle back together, I'll always do stand-up. So I'll always have this thing to go do, but I'm never going to be doing it like I used to be, or like all the time.
All of this year sounds like you are doing. I mean, you're busier than ever.
Busier than ever right now, but all this stuff leads to me being back on the couch with nothing to do. That's the plan. And go do this little stuff. Go do these 2-3 movies, do Saturday Night Live, do some stand-up, then back to the couch.
You've said you'd love to be directed by like Spielberg or Scorsese. Is that still something you would want to do?
Well, I think those are two of the best directors in the world, And I was just saying, I would love to be with any great director. If a great director had a great idea and saw me in it, I'm open to working with great ones. Yeah.
Music. Do you still make music?
That's what I do more than anything.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I do for nothing. Like when I'm at home, when I'm sitting on the couch, there's a guitar in my hand or close by, and I have a recording. I have a studio at my house, and I've recorded for 35 years. I've been doing music. And
Are we ever going to hear it?
Eventually, I'll put that stuff out, 50 years from now, I put that stuff out posthumously, and they'll be like, wow, we didn't even know Eddie Murphy. Do you know that's him playing right there? Who knew? It'll come out like that. All art has its day.
Just not while I'm alive.
Yeah, you'll hear it eventually.
What's the thing you're most proud about this movie?
That it was a little tiny picture that nobody ever, when we went to go do it, we weren't thinking it would be like this. It was just something that we were into, and everybody involved was like a Rudy Ray Moore fan, and we were just into it and loved Rudy Ray Moore and loved telling that story. And then for it to turn out the way it's turned out, that's just the most gratifying thing when you're not expecting any of that, and you get so much of it. This is the best reviews I've ever seen in my whole career. I never had a thing where they would like talk about the movie this much, and not just what I did, like how good the movie is and how well it's written and the cast and all this other stuff. Usually if I get anything, it's just you were funny in the picture. not this is a good movie with all this stuff. So that's a great feeling.
I've always wondered because look, we do a show. It's the same show every day. We kind of know what we're doing. When you're doing something like this, you don't know how it's going to turn out or what the reception's going to be.
Never. No one does. No one ever sets out. No one ever is trying to make a bad movie. Everybody, every movie you've ever seen, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, they're thinking, we're going to make a good movie here. Everybody is trying to make a good one. And it kind of, turns into what it. Making a good movie is a collaborative effort, and it's rare. Most movies aren't good. Most movies don't work. Most TV shows don't work. Most records don't work. Most things don't work. When something works, that's that's the exception to the rule.
What point during this did you know we've got this? Or did you?
I knew that it was working really early on the set because Craig Brewer, it was really loose. We were always looking at footage all the time, and it was like I could see, maybe a month in that it was really coming together well. Yeah. So a month in, I knew it was coming together well. And by the end of the movie, I knew that we had done a really good movie.
I was wondering, do people come up to you and still do do you to yourself, like they do their best Gumby imitation or their Mr. Robinson?
No, if you know Gumby, you're our age. So there's not a lot of people in their 50s and 60s walking up doing shtick. They don't. If I go to a basketball game or something, somebody might scream out something from my stand-up. I used to do this thing about a foreigner that saw my act, and all he was able to pick up was the profanity, and he's just cursing at me. So every now and then I'll be at a basketball game, and you hear somebody go, "F you, Eddie."
That would be odd. What do you think? Do you think about your kids? I mean, do they see you as Dad, or do they see you as Eddie Murphy?
They see me as Dad. Yeah. They see me as Dad. They're aware of Eddie Murphy. That Eddie Murphy is a persona. Like anybody you see on TV or on the screen, or that's their persona. That's not them. That's your on-screen persona.
SNL. Everybody, especially these days, it's very news oriented. Is there anything you're thinking about who you want to play or who you want to portray coming up?
I think that the people that are checking for me to host that show want to see me do the characters that I did on that show. So that's what I'll be doing mostly. I can't think of anybody, in the pop culture, lexicon right now and say, I want to go do that person. They want to see me do Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood and Gumby and Buckwheat and Velvet Jones.
Which probably prepped you for Dolomite.
Yeah, they closed it. But yeah, I'm going to do that stuff.
So, are we getting a scoop here that those are some of the people you may be reprising?
Well, I would think that that's what I would be doing. I don't know if I would. I think that's what people would want to see me do. I think that's what happens when cast members go back and host the show. They usually do a lot of their characters that were popular on the show.